Patch 2.1 has provided a much needed shake up to the meta that we all wanted. I have to say, even though there's all these new cards and a new champion Aphelios, and a wide range of moon weapons, there's still some old decks still dominating the meta. I'm glad to say this video features a new deck never reviewed before by Bomber and I, so I'm super excited to talk to you about this one. For those of you who watched my top 10 video on this patch, I saw a lot of you comment on why a particular deck wasn't on that list. Well, I'm glad to finally bring it to you as a meta deck. This is Best Meta Decks, Patch 2.1. This video has been done in collaboration with Bomber TV. Please remember to like and subscribe and turn on the bell notifications too. So let's dive in. Fiora Shen is primarily a Demacia deck which also features 13 cards from Iona. It's a mid-range deck which takes advantage of two keywords, Barrier and Challenger. So in other words, revolves around very simple combat where you're doing favourable fights and protecting your units. It's a fairly expensive deck featuring 5 epic cards. Value and flexibility are the keywords with this deck. Take as many value trades as possible, which is very easy with challenges such as Screeching Dragon and Fiora. Screeching Dragon is a great common card from the last expansion, and Fiora can simply act as a cheap free power challenger card here. Try to give them barrier with cards like Shen and Riposte. Shen gives a supported ally barrier this round, and Riposte gives an ally free damage and barrier this round as well. There are also lots of tricks to take advantage and punish your opponent with, like Single Combat and Sharp Sight. Note they both involve combat to kind of fit in theme with the deck. Single Combat obviously allows a favourable fight, and Sharp Sight makes sure you're buffed enough to kill over a key unit or survive a key fight. If value doesn't win you the game, you always have the Fiora win condition, which is easily achievable with all the protection barrier cards you have in this deck, including Iona cards such as Spirit's Refuge. So overall, a very solid deck fitting most playstyles and players. This deck is pretty much unchanged for quite a while now. With all the recent nerfs going on to consistent and popular decks in other archetypes, people have simply rediscovered this gem, and that's why it's been having success for quite a while now. Here is another deck you'll definitely recognise. It's Pirate Aggro, featuring cards from Noxus and Bilgewater. It's an aggro deck with a very mixed mana cost, with several cards costing all the different mana costs from 1 to 5. It's quite an expensive deck to build with 8 epic cards in total. The power cards here are Misfortune and Gangplank. Even if Misfortune will struggle to level up, she's here just a consistent way basically to level up Gangplank and make your board much more threatening on your attacking turns. Gangplank can then end the game against wide boards and therefore making aggro mirror matches quite easy with this deck. This deck wants to develop a board early on, and you can do this with a very quick start to the game with burn cards such as Lieben Saboteur and Jagged Butcher. Afterwards, has a lot of ways to end the game with burn with units like Imperial Demolitionist or Jack the Winner. Jack the Winner creates a Sleep with the Fishes each round, which deals 2 to an ally to deal 2 to the opposing Nexus. You also have Zap Spray Fin, which will be able to draw you a Noxen for Vor, always, as this is your only spell card with 3 or less mana, and this is obviously a fantastic card in this deck which can be very aggressive. If you reach late game, you can quickly close the game with Captain Farron and Decimate. Using the overwhelming Captain Farron and the pure damage from Decimate will quickly reduce your opposing Nexus to 0. So overall, this is a pretty solid deck and a very fast one too, so if you want to rank up quickly, this is definitely an option I recommend. Pirate Aggro receives a nerf to Captain Farron, but some deck lists of this Pirate Aggro archetype don't even include him. So even if they do, you're going to have such a strong aggressive opener with 2 Decimates that's probably going to be more than enough for this deck, so I'd say it's basically unchanged. This is Twisted Fate Fizz Elusive and features cards primarily from Piltover and Zorn, even though the 2 main champions are from Bilgewater. It's actually quite an expensive deck with 7 epic cards in total on top of the 6 champions. It's very spell heavy with 25 in total and only 9 follower cards. The deck has a very strong ramp to mid game with lots of cards costing 0 to 4 mana. The 2 main ideas with this deck is level up Twisted Fate and kill with elusives. It's as simple as that. When Twisted Fate is leveled up each round, the first 3 cards you play, anytime a card hits a card, he activates a Destiny card, which I'll go into shortly about what these can do. To accomplish the first goal of levelling up Twisted Fate, you have plenty of drawing tools such as Rummage and Pick a Card. Rummage discards 2 to draw 2, and Pick a Card places a card from your hand into your deck to draw 3 cards in the next round, which are all going to have fleeting. All this drawing will level up Twisted Fate quick. After Twisted Fate levels up, the amount of value he generates is absolutely insane, even if he survives just a single round. The red card from Twisted Fate will crush aggro strategies with the wide damage it does to all your opponent's units, which are typically going to have little health if they're aggressive. Yellow card can set back the tempo of your opponent on the turn they go in for their finishes. Imagine how triggering it's going to be when you deal 2 damage and stun their boss card just as they're about to win. Blue card can generate more value and it's useful in a control matchup. Now imagine casting all 3 of them in the same round, all 3 of Twisted Fate's cards, which can easily be done with the amount of low cost burst spells that this deck runs. To finish and kill, we do this with elusives and we mainly have Fizz and the hidden gem Wiggly Burblefish. If you start off with a Fizz then draw on turn 2 into Suit Up, this can be devastating. Suit Up costs 2 less when drawn and sets a card's stats to 4/4. Also activate Fizz's effect so he's untargetable and elusive. The 4/4 stat line is basically unremovable in the early games and can only be answered with the single target removals like Vengeance or multiple removals, giving you the advantage on the value and baiting out removals for safer Twisted Fate later on, so he can obviously be generating the value of his cards. Wiggly Burblefish is also the best target for Imperative Improvement to push for more elusive damage while also protecting the generated copies from pings. This spell simply creates a copy of Wiggly Burblefish with the additional 1/1 stats. This deck suffers a lot from AoEs and removals in general, but against a deck with none of these, it's basically unstoppable. Twisted Fate Fizz was one of the first decks to go top 1 in Masters last patch, and it's slowly growing in popularity, and the meta's basically evolved to answer this new threat with Anivia Reborn, for example. This deck is still in the top of the most competitive decks at the moment. And there we go guys, what do you think to these 3 decks? I have a feeling that these 3 decks will not surprise you too much as they're extremely popular, both in terms of play rate and meta dominance. I wonder how long Twisted Fate Fizz Elusive will last, as there's nothing too broken as such. It's interesting to see that Zap Sprayfin has made yet another OP deck, and I know Bomber is really wanting this card to be nerfed as soon as possible. The data presented here is analysed by Bomber TV using MOBA Analytics. He's a Masters tier player with a background in game theory and game design. He took the most winning archetypes into Master tier, excluding ones with small play rates, analysed their key properties on why they are so strong. Link to his channel is in a pinned comment and in the card above. What do you think the best deck is in patch 2.1? I would love to hear in the comments. Up next is most popular decks patch 2.1, looking at the decks most used in this patch. Please remember to like and subscribe and turn on bell notifications too. See you next time guys.